Shout out to G-Man Boxing.
Alright, lads and lassies, Billy Joe Saunders takes on Canelo Alvarez, goes down next weekend for the unified super middleweight world title. So Billy Joe Saunders obviously brings the WBO super middleweight world title. Canelo Alvarez brings the WBA and the WBC super middleweight world titles. So this is a fight that I'm really intrigued about. I think it's an interesting fight. I think it's a very competitive fight, and it's a fight that I personally can't wait to see. I'm definitely going to be staying up for this fight. I'm definitely going to be covering it. It's a fight that I've been looking forward to for a while. Now, when I look at this fight, I see on paper a very competitive fight. I see on paper a style that definitely has the potential to give Canelo Alvarez trouble. A style that Canelo Alvarez in the past has won fight against people with a similar style, such as Erislandy Lara, but it's definitely been looking more human against that style. Now, against Erislandy Lara, that was way back in, I think, July 2014, so many years ago, all right? And that was a much younger Canelo. I think that was Canelo who was still probably about 23. So, very young, nowhere near as experienced, nowhere near as good as he is now, has improved in so many aspects. I mean, between his ability to cut the ring off, his counter punch and his head movement. Canelo Alvarez is a lot of people's pound for pound number one. I have him as number one, and justifiably so. Canelo is a tremendous fighter. If you don't like Canelo in terms of maybe him, what he does, in terms of business, in terms of, him getting decisions in fights that, you felt he lost, I can understand that, but you definitely can't say Canelo was not a good fighter. He absolutely is. Now, Billy Joe Saunders he's got a lot of strengths in here. So he is very slick. He moves very well. He's got a good southpaw jab. He's never shown any real fragilities in the chin department. But to be fair, he's always been so good in terms of his movement and in terms of his defense that he's never really had to take clean shots. Now the level of opposition hasn't been anywhere near the quality of Canelo. But that has to be said as well. He is very good defensively. He's got very good legs, right? He can move. As I said, he's got a very good southpaw jab. His hooks are actually quite good. His uppercuts are good. He can, his judge of distance is very good as well, Billy Joe. And, he can get in and out quite quick as well. But saying that, when I see Billy Joe and I see him moving around the ring, I see very fluid movement. I see very good movement. I see very, good, his feet are very quick while he's moving around the ring. But bear this in mind. When I'm talking about the performances where I've seen him move very well, his foot speed is quick, and he's looked very fluid in there, that had been down at 160. Alright? At super middleweight, certainly in his last fight against Martin Murray, to the eye, it was apparent that his foot speed at 168 pounds is slower than it is 160 pounds. Now, one thing Billy Joe will need in this fight is his quick feet. So he'll need to make sure that he's moving around the ring, that he has quick feet. Because Canelo Alvarez, for all his many strengths, one thing he's always had throughout his career is slow feet. Alright, that's one thing you'll notice about Canelo. Even when he was back down to 154 pounds, he always had slow feet. Alright, so if you have a foot speed advantage over Canelo, you're going to want to use it. But at 168, I don't know. Billy Joe probably still has the foot speed advantage to Canelo, I would imagine. But it's definitely nowhere near as apparent as it would have been at 160. At 168, Billy Joe, I don't think is the physically stronger of the two. I think that this is Canelo's natural weight. Alright, this is the weight where he feels most comfy at. He is definitely not undersized at the weight. He's obviously fought at light heavyweight. He is definitely going to be the more physical two in there. Whereas Billy Joe, by his own admission a few years ago, said if he'd really try it, he could do 154. Right, this is really a middleweight, Billy Joe Saunders, campaigning at super middleweight. So he is definitely going to be disadvantaged in terms of size. In terms of punching power, again, you would imagine that Canelo Alvarez has the advantage there, because Billy Joe was not noted as being a devastating puncher. He has respectable power there. He always is up on his toes, so he's never really hitting with full power, it has to be said. But even still, you would imagine that his punching power probably wouldn't trouble Canelo. Canelo's been hit by guys like, he's taken, shots off Kovalev, Callum Smith, Triple G, Danny Jacobs. That was it. Remember the left hook he got hit with by Danny Jacobs? Danny Jacobs can bang. he's taken their shots and has kept on going. So I would imagine Billy Joe has very little to trouble Canelo in terms of the punching power department. Ring IQ, I would edge it to Canelo. Canelo does have he's very good at cutting off the ring. His head movement is very good. He's always in good positions. His counter punch into the body is absolutely fantastic. His timing as well is very good. So in terms of sheer ring, you would give that to Canelo. How I see this fight playing out, I see Billy Joe having success in this fight. I see him having success early on in this fight. One criticism about Billy Joe going off this fight as well is that he's always seemed to gas late in fights. You know, apart from the David Lemieux fight, which stylistically that was tailor-made for him, he's always had a tendency to kind of gas a bit late in fights. We saw that against Andy Lee. We saw that against Akabov. We saw him gassing a bit against that Argentinian guy who he fought on the Jake Paul KSI undercard, whose name escapes me. He's always seemed to kind of, gas a bit late. Obviously on the KSI undercard he was able to land an uppercut and stop the guy, but for the most part Billy Joe was tended to fade down the stretch. Eubank Jr. is a very good example. In this fight, he is definitely not going to be fading down the stretch. If he fades down the stretch, he's in deep trouble, because Canelo can go 12 rounds. Canelo in the past had stamina issues. They seem to be rectified now. He seems to be able to go to 12 rounds at a decent pace, and I wouldn't say a frantic pace, but definitely he's able to manage himself over the course of 12 rounds better now than he used to. I think a lot of that had to do with the weight cutting. At the time, he was cutting a hell of a lot of weight back to get down to 154 and 155, so I suspect a lot of that had to do with it. How I see this fight playing out is I expect Billy Joe is going to come out. He is going to be moving around the ring. He is going to be throwing shots. He's going to be throwing jabs. He should have the reach advantage. He's definitely got the height advantage in this fight. So he's going to want to use that. He's going to want to keep Canelo at bay. He's probably going to want to try and box with Canelo. Now, Canelo's head movement is so good that we saw in the Danny Jacobs fight that Danny Jacobs couldn't even land a jab on Canelo. The head movement was that good. Now, Billy Joe, I believe he will have a little bit more success with the southpaw stance, because bear in mind Canelo I don't think he's fought a southpaw since Erislandy Lara. So there may be a little bit of adjustment needs to get used to. Bear in mind, if you've not fought a southpaw for the best part, and he's definitely not fought a southpaw since that I can think of anyway. Well, you've not fought a southpaw for the best part of 7 years. You probably will take just a little bit of time to adjust to the angles. I know you'll be sparring, but it's different when you get in there on fight night. So Canelo might take a look with Billy Joe, might just give him, the first couple of rounds. I wouldn't be surprised if after about 5 rounds there are scorecards to have Billy Joe ahead. Maybe not winning every round, but definitely have him ahead. Canelo's strengths will be his counter-punching ability, primarily his counter-punching to the body. Billy Joe is looking, in terms of aesthetically, the best shape I've seen him in. And he is going to need to be in good aesthetic shape, because Canelo Alvarez is going to target the body of Billy Joe, such the same way he targeted the body of Sergey Kovalev and Callum Smith, and several fighters in the past. He will be trying to take Billy Joe Saunders' legs away. As I said early on, for my money, Billy Joe's legs look noticeably, or his feet look noticeably slower. I'm not saying he's plodding around the ring, certainly not, but they're not as fluid or as fast as they were at 160. So Canelo is going to want to make them slow legs even slower. Right, so he's going to be going to Billy Joe's body. Billy Joe's going to want it to be on point, but he's going to want to be aware of that, because Canelo Alvarez can punch. He's a wicked combination puncher, and he's an excellent body puncher. So he's going to want to make sure he is doing his best to avoid the hooks and the uppercuts that are no doubt going to be coming to Billy Joe's body. I would imagine that Canelo may even start jabbing to Billy Joe's body just to try and even get him off balance, to put him in position where he can get him up against the ropes. If Billy Joe finds himself up against the ropes with Canelo teeing off on him, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. And that's going to catch the eye of the judges. You need to remember is that Erislandy Lara tried to win against Canelo by just running around the ring. As I said, that was a Canelo who was not the Canelo we have now. So whilst he was able to, I thought he won that fight legitimately, Canelo, the Lara fight. Whilst he was able to have success pressure on Erislandy Lara, it wasn't as effective as it would say be now. We still had a lot to learn. His cutting the ring skills off weren't as effective. If Billy Joe was going to do something similar to Erislandy Lara, maybe run around the ring but be a bit more aggressive, he's going to want to remember he's got a Canelo here who knows how to cut the ring off very effectively. Triple G, who is a very good boxer, tried to box with Canelo in the rematch, and that actually played into Canelo's strengths a bit, because Canelo, as he said, he can go full-blown Mexican style. He has that skill. And I think we're going to see Canelo try and implement, full-blown Mexican pressure fighter, hands up. He's going to want to try and pressure Billy Joe as well. He's going to use his head movement to get inside, and I think he's going to light Billy Joe's body up. I think that Canelo, late on, if Billy Joe does start to tire, we may even see him possibly, even maybe outbox Billy Joe with his own game. I really think Canelo can do that. Having said all that, I do think that Billy Joe's strengths are that he is a good long-range boxer. He is slick. He can move very well when he wants to, when he has his legs underneath him. And if he can do that, he's definitely going to pick up rounds in here. We may finish this fight, and we may say at the end, irrespective of the result, Billy Joe made Canelo look human in there. Because in his last few performances, he's just been running through guys. Obviously, the Yildirim fight was a bit of a joke, but the Callum Smith, he didn't win a round. Kovalev got blasted out. Danny Jacobs, he couldn't land a jab on Canelo. Rocky Fielding just was a sitting duck. He was a lamb to the slaughter. So Canelo's last few performances, he's been looking very good, very deadly. I think in this fight, you may see him look a little bit more human. There may be rounds in there where you look at Canelo and you think, I wonder, is he as good as we thought? Because that's the way fans can be. They can be quite reactionary sometimes when we see things. So that's what I think is going to happen in this fight. I think that Billy Joe is going to try and move. He's going to try and box with Canelo. Canelo is going to try and slip, get inside, get Billy Joe up against the ropes, give him some feints, give him some counters, and he's definitely going to be countering Billy Joe with wicked body shots. He's going to be opening up combinations to Billy Joe's body. I have to give a prediction on this fight. I'm predicting Canelo Alvarez to win this fight via points. Unanimous decision. There's been a lot said about the judges. Billy Joe said this, Eddie Hearn said this, etc., etc. I think Canelo's going to win this fight legitimately. Alright, so I think when the decision is read out and it's Canelo by a unanimous decision, I don't think that anyone is going to argue that it's the right decision. What I'm saying is, I'm not seeing, people are talking about robbery. I don't think we'll see a robbery in this fight. I think we'll see Canelo win it legitimately. What I do think we'll see is that we might not see Billy Joe get the credit he deserves in terms of the scorecards. So what I mean by that is, we could be looking at a 8 rounds to 4 fight, a 116, 112 fight, but we may get a 118, 110 scorecard, maybe across the board, something like that, where Billy Joe maybe gets a round or two where he really should have 4 or 5 rounds, something like that I can expect happening. In terms of Canelo winning, I think he'll win this fight legitimately. Would I go for stoppage? No. I can't see Canelo stopping Billy Joe. I think he's the power to do it, but I think that Billy Joe will be there to survive. Billy Joe is a bit like Tyson Fury in a sense. He rises to occasions. So we've seen lackluster Billy Joe performances in the past, but whenever we've seen his best performances, it's been against opposition who he's felt the perceived threat from. Early on against Eubank, boxing beautifully. David Lemieux, punch perfect. Andy Lee early on, extremely impressive. So for me, we will see the best Billy Joe, but I don't think the best Billy Joe beats the best Canelo. And I think right now we have the best Canelo there is. That's my thoughts on this fight. That's my prediction. Let me know what you think of my breakdown. Let me know what you think of your prediction. I want to know what you think, fans, in the comment section below. Hope you all enjoyed the video. I hope your Friday is going well. It's going to be a great weekend, lads and lassies. It's going to be a great day. If you're watching this first thing in the morning, hope you all have a great day. If you could help my day, smash the like button, subscribe, of course, if you haven't already. We're growing and growing and growing. It's a great thing. Lads and lassies, I'll talk to you. Peace.